Call the council meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Wakefield.
Here.
Knudsen.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Brooke.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right, first up, comments and suggestions from citizens present. This is your opportunity to weigh in on any topic that you would like to discuss that is important to the city, except for anything that might be on the agenda tonight. If you do have a comment, please step forward, come to the mic, identify yourself and your address. Try to keep your comments short, and please try not to repeat other people's comments. So, does anybody have a comment? Any? Now would be good. It's a good time.
Hello, my name is Amanda Jo Hine. I am honored to serve, my address is 1907B Riverview Lane in Somerset. Sorry, I'm not actually from Hudson. So I am here representing the Hudson Hot Air Fair. On behalf of our entire team, I would like to extend a warm welcome of all of Hudson and its surrounding communities as we prepare for our 36th annual event. February 7th through 9th in 2025 is when you can expect the fun to begin. Join us on this year's theme as Staying Alive in 2025. So this is a disco theme, if you didn't notice from the disco hot air balloon that's on your flyer. First and foremost, we want to express our deepest gratitude to the City of Hudson, the Fire Department, Police Department, EMS, City Council, Safety Committee, City Works, and the countless individuals working tirelessly behind the scenes to make the Hudson Hot Air Fair a reality year after year. Your support is invaluable, and this event won't be possible without your efforts. As you may have heard, we're navigating some significant changes this year. For the first time ever, EP Rock Elementary School is unavailable to construction. However, thanks to the incredible cooperation of the Hudson School District, we're excited to announce that this year's event will be held at Rivercrest. It also was our only option, so we're still thankful. While this shift brings some challenges, it opens new opportunities. Due to the parking limitations at Rivercrest, we will be utilizing Safeway Bus Company to shuttle attendees to and from the event on Saturday, February 8th. Shuttling locations will include Plaza 94, United Methodist Church, Hudson High School, and Faith Community Church. We sincerely thank these partners for allowing us to use their spaces. And there's going to be detailed bus schedule with will all be shared in our coming weeks. Really, it'll probably be at the end of this week, and it'll help all of the attendees plan their visits. There is limited handicap parking that is available at the school. We're converting all of the parking at school that will house either vendors or handicap parking. So that's why we have everybody shuttling in, because we want to be able to accommodate as many people as possible. We're thrilled about this year's venue, and Rivercrest picturesque setting with its beautiful backdrop of trees will provide a stunning launch site for the balloons. The field is comparable in size to EP Rock, and the interior offers even more space for vendors and community organizations to participate. Visitors can enjoy food and drinks from local nonprofits on site, and we're especially excited about the return of our beloved Hudson Hot Air Fair collector mugs. They've been gone for the last 2 years, so if you're a collector, it's time to come back. These are going to be generously provided by Quick Trip, and the local food pantry is actually housing them for us, so we're very grateful for the entire community helping us do this. So, of course, this event will still feature our classic favorites, including the Friday night torchlight parade downtown, Saturday's bike race down at Lakefront Park, balloon launches, weather permitting, obviously, the always entertained smoosh boarding competition, and our expanded marketplace is going to be still open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And, of course, our moon glow. Now, if you're not into the idea of shuttling for the Moon Glow, we do have several businesses that are participating. Dick's Bar and Grill, the Emporium, Ziggy's, and there's going to be a lot more that are going to be posted. We're going to have watch parties that will have a live stream of the Moon Glow. So if you didn't want to huddle up the kids at that time to go, we still have opportunities for you to be in a warm place and still participate in Hot Air Fair. Sunday morning is going to offer limited on-site parking at Rivercrest, so there's no shuttling on Sunday. You can drive in. This is going to be first come, first served basis. Attendees can catch the potential boom lunch before the kids' ice fishing contest. This is going to be perfectly timed with this year's ideal ice-making weather that we're having out here. And along with Sunday Fun Day breakfast opportunities throughout the community, we're going to also have shuttles from the Willow River Saloon that will go out to the ice fishing contest. So also you have another shuttle opportunity. We encourage everyone to plan ahead, leave early, and most importantly, be patient as we embrace these changes and working together to keep the Hudson Hot Air Fair staying alive in 2025. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Good job. Any other comments? Any comments? Any comments? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have next thing in our presentations, the swearing in of our 2 new patrol officers for the police department. Chief?
Hi, thank you. If we could, we'll start with Patrick McGinty. Want to come up here, please?
Jeff, the microphone's right up.
Okay. Yep, right here is fine. Patrick grew up in Lakeville, Minnesota, and he's lived in the Hudson area for the past 6 years with his wife, Courtney. He's a big football and hockey fan, so if he's not watching the Minnesota Wild or the Green Bay Packers, you'll find him outdoors hiking, hunting, or on a boat. Prior to his career in law enforcement, he was a middle school special education instructor and served 6 years in the U.S. Air Force as security forces. He's been a police officer in Wisconsin since 2019, and he's looking forward to meeting everyone. If you're out and about and you see him, feel free to wave him down and introduce yourself. He's very excited for the opportunity to work in the beautiful community of Hudson. Welcome. You want to over to the judge?
Raise your right hand. I, Patrick McGinty. Having been appointed as patrol officer. For the city of Hudson. Affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin. And will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties.
Impartially discharge the duties
Of said office.
of said office
To the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome.
Next will be Jordan Hemker. You can come up here, please. Jordan grew up in West Salem, Wisconsin, and has lived in the Hudson area since 2019. He's been a police officer since 2015, starting in Verona County, and has been with the River Falls Police Department for the last 6 years. He also served in the U.S. Army Reserves for 9 years. Outside of work, he enjoys spending his free time painfully cheering for the Packers, hunting, and spending time with his wife Maria and their chocolate lab Stella. Also, if you see him out and about, feel free to stop and say hi. He is also excited to be here and serve the beautiful community of Hudson.
All right, raise your right hand. I, Jordan Hemker,
I, Jordan Hemker,
having been appointed as patrol officer for the city of Hudson,
having been appointed as patrol officer for the city of Hudson,
affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution for the state of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
of said office to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we have a presentation on short-term rental review process from Todd Streeter, Community Collaboration.
Well, I picked a good meeting to be sick at, last one. So with me tonight, I have Todd Streeter. He's going to come up and present on what a public participation engagement process might look like, and then we'll delve into, ultimately, what staff has the bandwidth to take on, what we can or cannot do, time, things like that. But I think it's a good thing to kind of set the stage. And he was here at the last meeting, listening in and hearing what the council had to say about the issues, that 45-minute conversation that y'all had that I watched. So I'll turn it over to Todd, and we'll get plugged in here. This one right here. Go this way.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Mike. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for this opportunity to spend a few minutes with you to introduce myself, talk a little bit about my approach to community engagement, and then we can talk a little bit about a proposal, or at least a proposed engagement process that I think may serve the city very well, as well as the residents that are concerned or interested in this topic. Before I go into that process, I'd just like to take a moment and just give you a little bit of my background. I am a former mayor of the city of Lake St. Croix Beach, just on the other side of the river there, and I learned an awful lot during my tenure in civic affairs, and it's pretty much the reason why I do what I do today. And I won't spend much more time on that, but I could certainly talk more about that. I've also been the executive director and president of the Greater Stillwater Chamber of Commerce. This is the opportunity that I had quite some time back after my role with the city in putting together a bottom-up engagement process that we called the Downtown Revitalization Committee. And we used that process for about 2.5 years to address the pending changes to downtown Stillwater prior to the congressional approval of the bridge. It was very simple. My tenure there as chamber director was very acute to me that there were a lot of issues in downtown Stillwater, both long-term as well as, pending, given the new bridge and the closure of the lift bridge. So I orchestrated a downtown revitalization effort that the city's county officials, city officials, downtown property owners, and downtown business owners were involved in for about 2.5 years to orchestrate, design, develop new ideas and recommendations for downtown. They did it upon themselves. The city was actually not involved in the process, although they were on the committee from the planners and some council members. So it was this experience that propelled me to see, given the benefits that occurred, to go on my own basically and share this process with other communities. And I have done that with a number of communities in Minnesota and Wisconsin, primarily with comprehensive plans. I've also done downtown revitalization for other communities as well as master plan redevelopment projects, all using this bottom-up process, slightly modified for each situation. So with that background and work, I've been very blessed, I guess, if you will, to have this process recognized for the state of Wisconsin, the American Planners Association, for innovation and planning for engagement. And that was with the City of New Richmond Comprehensive Plan Project. I also participated as a presenter at the International City and County Management Association National Conference in Pittsburgh this past fall, and the presentation also won one of the best presentations of the conference. There's 130 presentations over those 5 days, and mine was one of 28 that were selected for that. And I'm also honored that this presentation was one of 7 that were selected for their on-demand engagement presentation for all of the management officials that are members in the largest organization of municipal managers in the world, I understand. So we're delighted to see that. So let's move the conversation a little bit more to Hudson, Wisconsin, and talk a little bit about, a few minutes, just about typical engagement. And this happens in communities all over. And it is, the traditional method as I describe it, is more or less a listening session where the community comes in. They spend anywhere from 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half at best, to share their issues, concerns about a particular matter. And that just seems to be the default method to use. It's typically facilitated by staff, of course, and there's not a whole lot of time required, and then once it's over, everyone goes home. So the question is, now what? Problem being is that once that initial effort is undertaken, all those ideas, which are usually placed on a board somewhere, are then not discarded, but they're set aside because the next day there's a whole slew of priorities that staff and everyone else has to get done. And unfortunately, when time is available, there isn't a whole lot of time to work on the issues that were brought up during that one session. So, what is not so good about this process, I guess, the way I look at it? One is that there is just not enough time between the public input period and when staff was able to then get around to addressing the issues. Too much time typically passes by. What this means is the community, or those who gave their input, are wondering what's going on. We haven't seen anything, we haven't heard anything, was my voice even heard? And then there's just a few people who are usually tasked with trying to find the solutions, and that usually falls on the shoulders of staff. And the input from the public is no longer sought because they gave their input in that initial 45-minute session. And the public isn't actually even invited to come back and weigh in on perhaps some of the solutions that are being discussed. They're just no longer part of the process. And the byproduct of this is that typically the community, the citizens, or at least those who are interested in this situation are pretty unsatisfied. And that happens every day, every municipality. It's just the standard, typical way things are more than likely done. But what the difference is that if more time was offered, not just one meeting. Okay. Citizens in this process that I use bottom up, they're encouraged to stay involved. They feel valued and their input's respected when they're given an opportunity to help actually solve the issues, be part of that solution process. And citizens then offer their potential solutions, and I can assure you, more people who are putting their brains together to look at issues and analyze opportunities, the more you have helping with that. By nature, the more results and more positive outcomes you're going to get, or at least a lot more things you'll be able to evaluate. So what's the benefit? With a bottom-up process, when people are able to get involved, they're able to participate from start to finish for those who want to participate. It reduces the overall burden on staff because you're not asking them to try to figure out the solutions. You're getting your communities to help you find those solutions. And on the comprehensive plan projects that I've worked on, Some of our committees, we've had 30 people on the committees, and we've had some projects, 75 people on those committees. And they work from 4 months to sometimes 7 months. And they meet from every two weeks. We get together and do a formal meeting, and a lot of them work outside those 2 meetings. They get very engaged, and they get very excited about what they're doing with their fellow committee members. So they have a lot of power, or you entrust and empower them to do a lot of work. And they're volunteers. They're helping the staff, they're helping their own community. And byproduct, once again, citizens are more accepting of the resulting outcome. So as it pertains to the short-term home rental engagement, I am proposing a similar type bottom-up approach where we are asking citizens to, or at least inviting citizens to participate in a multi-meeting process that gives them the opportunity to help find solutions and not just bring up issues. So some of the considerations, of course, is location. So we'll be looking for a place to conduct these 4 to 5 meetings, normally in the evening hours, naturally. And we'd be looking for the city to help promote it to get as much input as possible. The goals are pretty straightforward. There is a very specific process. It's short. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it's very purposeful from one meeting to the next. So we are looking to have the meeting start with obviously identifying issues. Some I'm sure you've already heard. Some maybe issues that haven't come up before. But then we focus on collective solution-oriented engagement. We shift the dialogue from bringing up issues and dwelling on those to focusing on what do we do about them. As a community, what do we do about them? And when I was mayor and you get that 5 minutes of people coming up just as we did here tonight, and they have an issue about something, I used to say, okay, what are your thoughts about how to solve that? And they kind of look at me like, well, that's not my job. You know, that's you guys. That's what you're up there for to do. And I'd say, well, you know, the 5 of us don't really have a mandate on brain power in this community. If you have any solutions or any ideas, we'd love to hear them. And invariably, I'd go have a cup of coffee with them, and we'd go figure it out. We'd start finding solutions. So it's the question of whether you want to give people an opportunity to just talk about issues, or if you want to extend that opportunity and invite them to help find the solutions as well. That's a major dynamic change. So that's the basis and the goals of this short process. In meeting number 1, which is just kind of a pre-meeting, the way I describe it, is that we want to probably first gather the property owners that have the licenses currently and just kind of get the feedback and get their thoughts on what it is that the intention is for this process. Give them some due consideration and you know, try to see if we can get their assistance in this. The second meeting is the initial public meeting where we are there to try to identify as many of the issues as we can and deal with it in one meeting and kind of move on and get ready to move on to the next. At that meeting and also in the marketing materials, we want to have this process clearly defined for the community to read and learn that this is a process where we want their continued involvement. And so at this first public meeting, we would be asking people to sign up with their email. We would like to stay in contact with them. We want to keep them engaged. They would have the schedule of the meetings. They can participate if they choose to, but we want to keep this engagement going. At the third meeting, which would be the second public meeting, if you will, we would take all of those issues and problems and so forth that were identified in the first meeting, and then we would add any more, last call for issues, and then we would spend the rest of that time talking about possible solutions and start moving the conversation to the next level. And at the conclusion of that meeting, we will have some ideas as to what we can do to solve some of these problems through community input. In meeting number 2, we would be asking people to maybe do some research, go out and find what other communities have done with short-term rental housing. You know, the staff only has so much time. Everyone in this room only has so much time to deal with issues. If we have 10, 15 people spending 3 hours plunking on the computer trying to find some great examples, it's amazing with the volume of stuff that we would have to work with. And no one has to spend an enormous amount of time trying to tackle this all by themselves. So at the conclusion of meeting number 3, we would be taking those ideas, we would be coordinating them, collecting them, organizing them, and then staff, myself, would kind of look at them, would kind of say, okay, well, these are actually pretty good. You know, what do we do with these now? So in meeting number 4, we would send that information back to those participating on this process, and they would see the work that had culminated from that last meeting. We would encourage them to go find more examples to solve some of these problems, and then bring them forward. So basically, we are keeping their process going. And at this point, staff would be able to now engage with this process in meeting number 4 and learn more about what some of these opportunities are and share some of them with those committee members. In meeting number 5, we have the opportunity at the conclusion for staff to do their due diligence on that honed down group of potential solutions from meeting number 4. And now they can do their due diligence. Now staff can spend some time really just trying to figure out, you know, how do we do this or how do we do that, and try to make sense of it and see what can be done with it in terms of policies or procedures and potential enforcement. And then in meeting number 5 here, they come back to the same group and report back to them, this is what we've done with your recommendations, this is what we've discovered, found, this is how we would like to probably proceed with potential ordinances. And at this point, there could be some draft of some ordinance language for them to look at. And let them comment on that at that time. If there's any ambiguity or something that somebody missed somewhere along the way, this is a great time to catch it. These are the vested stakeholders, be it residents or be it the licensee or would-be licensee. This is a great time to make sure that everything looks as best as it can be. And when I do in community engagement, I always tell everybody at the kickoff meetings and so forth is that you'll never get 100% of people agreeing on 100% of things, right? It's just impossible. It's just, you know, you can't even strive for it, right? So I always say if you can get 85% of the people collectively working on something to say, you know what, I can live with that. Now, they don't have to jump up and down and be overly excited and everything. They just have to say, you know what, I can live with that. And if they can live with that 85% of those people, then I think you've got a victory. I think you've won. I think you've done the best you can. And in the end, most of these people feel satisfied, they feel heard, they feel respected, they've been part of the process, and I see it time and time again with my projects. And some of the cities, they kind of go, how did all this happen? I go, you just got to give your community a chance. I'll admit, comprehensive plans are big projects and they take quite a while, but there's absolutely no reason we can't get the same basis of outcome and result on a one-topic situation. And if the topic's a little bit, you know, controversial or gets people excited in one way or another, this is probably the way to go about it, because it dials people down, they get to participate, they get to see how difficult it is to find solutions. And that is the key thing with the bottom-up process. When you give your community the opportunity to try to solve problems and not just bring up issues, they realize, you know what, they got a hard job. So it gives you a chance to switch seats, and that's not such a bad thing, to be honest with you. So in conclusion, I would be more than willing, of course, to put together a report of this process, provide it to staff at the appropriate time, and then, of course, for council consideration when this process starts to wrap up. Are there any questions?
Questions?
I have a few, if I may. So it looks like 5 meetings. What's your timeline where we are needing to act fairly quickly on this because short-term rental season will kick up pretty quickly? What's your vision on that?
Well, I don't see any reason why within a short period of time I can't meet with staff and figure out some of the details here, but I would suggest that these meetings be held, 10 days apart, 14 days apart. We get it done relatively quickly, if not sooner than that. I'd have to double check the requirements in terms of your deadline. I know you've got deadline for and then you need to approve it and get ordinances written, but it could run quickly. We could have meetings once a week. It kind of depends upon people's availability, but I think doing a meeting once a week to get this thing going and wrapped up would be satisfactory from my point of view.
And so after meeting 5, if I understood the presentation correctly, you'll come forward with potential language drafting ideas, other ordinances that have maybe worked from other communities. So there'll be some good data that the city staff can finalize and put into an official ordinance. Did I understand that correctly?
I think the process itself is more beneficial to reduce that amount of time, actually, because if this process or those involved are identifying those through their own work that staff and myself can incorporate into what would then be in meeting number 5, looks like a really rough draft of ordinances, and which would identify or address the solutions that were brought up as the first part. So I'm not envisioning a separate situation where we're doing ordinances as a separate subset of this. I see it as giving staff, here's what this community or committee or people have found, what makes sense, what's a non-starter, for example, and give staff an opportunity to look it over without having to do too much work until they report back and have that discussion with the same individuals in meeting number 4.
And in our last meeting, some costs were referenced. Do you have an official cost on what this would cost?
I had provided an estimate before, $2,500 to $3,000 on that.
Okay.
So if I get this right, if you could back up a screen or two, you provide staff with the findings. Our staff is the ones that actually draft the ordinance and bring it to the council with a recommendation on what to do.
I think the work that the group will do, including my support and input and so forth, will provide enough of the content for ordinance drafting that minimal amount of time would be needed by staff to actually
I'm not worried
write
about
the draft and the legal aspect
I
of it.
just want to
too.
know who's writing the ordinance.
Yeah. I think we're producing the information for staff to finalize ordinance drafts based upon the content that's been produced by the process.
Okay, so any recommendations that come forward to the council will be produced by our staff.
The final drafting would be done by staff, yeah. There's technical considerations and legal
I
considerations,
understand
so,
that. I
yeah.
just wanted,
Yep, but we cut down their time on having to deal.
how many short-term rental things of engagement have you been involved in?
I have not been involved in any short-term rental engagements, but I'm familiar with the subject matter,
Okay.
so.
Anybody else?
I guess is the issue that we're facing, is it writing an ordinance or is it enforcing an ordinance? That's, I mean, if that's where our sticking point is, I feel like we're capable of writing an ordinance, or maybe we can't. I'm not sure where that is, but I feel like there's two issues. I'm not sure which is.
Maybe it's writing an enforceable ordinance.
Writing an enforceable ordinance, there we go.
I mean, that's the final document we want.
Have we had, and I don't know, help me out here, we don't have our attorney here, but I don't want to get too far afield on something that is not on the agenda, just the presentation is on the agenda and a conversation here, but have we had problems with interpreting our ordinance for enforcement purposes, Chief?
Not from our perspective.
Okay. Okay.
And when there are complaints, we do advise the public to call the PD, because generally those complaints come
Right.
when City Hall is not open.
Yeah. All right, well, we got the presentation done. I think that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting and consider it. Okay? All right, thank you, Mr. Streeter, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Presentation of new police building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a good school teacher handing out paper.
Could you print this smaller?
Good school teacher handing out paper. Yeah, I can tell.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I get a, there's a magnifying glass.
Couple new people coming
I brought my screen.
Okay, I need my really good glasses.
I know, these really, I know.
These are too wimpy.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. I'm Tate Walker. I'm with OPN Architects. I have some colleagues with me here tonight.
My name's Ian Ford with OPN Architects.
Good evening. I'm Ken Francis with Krause Anderson Construction.
Great. Thanks, gentlemen. We've had the pleasure of working with City of Hudson, Hudson Police for almost 2 years now. And we wanted to give you a quick overview of proposal for the new station, show you, talk about the background, how we got here, talk about the new station, how it works, how it's going to serve your community for the future, and talk about the budget and schedule. So that's the gist. We're going to spend about 15 minutes to present the project, and welcome any comments you might have. So. Just to kind of level set here, we wanted to, point out some deficiencies in the current station. It's aging and doesn't meet the need for essential services for the Hudson that Hudson Police provide. There's no room for expansion at the existing station. It's difficult to serve the whole community from the location of the existing station. And as you mentioned earlier this evening, Mr. Mayor, the station was initially planned to be there for 5 years, and it's been 15 years in its current location. So we do feel like it's outlived its useful life, and we looked at a number of opportunities. We used our experience designing police stations. OPN's 45 years old, and we've designed many of them over the year. We did regional benchmarking tours to see similar communities and what they've done for their stations. So we have a really good idea of their needs. We benchmarked the existing station and looked at the operations of Hudson Police to make sure everything that was needed was included for the future. We had leadership meetings with the city and the police department and staff surveys to really understand how all these things go together. So it was really nice to see the prior presentation on facilitation. We feel like we've done our due diligence in that regard. So Ian, you want to take this one?
Sure.
Great.
Thank you. So as Tate was describing, we worked through the needs, and as came to a series of goals that the police station will certainly be a secure facility. It'll support the health and well-being of all the employees of the police department. It'll provide a functional layout and design. Will be flexible to allow for the growth that the department will need over the years to support the growth of the Hudson community, and we will manage the finances responsibly. So those were the goals set forth through the needs assessment. We also kind of a number, we need to identify how much space we need, right? So through all the things that Tate described and the process, we came to the conclusion that the approximate need relative to square footage was around 40,000 square feet. It breaks down into a series of different spaces, common areas, patrol and community protection, the indoor garage as some examples of that. Through the original needs assessment, the team worked on design for the station as a new construction, a new build. Came to the square footage costs of around $600 a square foot. That's construction cost. So 40,000 square feet at roughly $600 a square foot is $24 million. At that time, that was not something that the community could support. And so the community went and sought other opportunities. And so we have the Hanley Road property. This property provided some really great alignment with the needs assessment in that it provided roughly 40,000 square feet of interior space. It provided an opportunity for indoor vehicular storage or parking. Had a great existing exterior parking lot, which also provided the opportunity to have the impound lot, which I know has been something that's always had some problems. So to have it on the same property was ideal, and it is centrally located. Here you can see in the kind of the bluish color up in the existing location, and its 1 and 2 mile radius kind of lightly dashed in the blue, whereas the Hanley Road location noted in red is more centrally located, can provide better service and more access to the community in a more timely manner. The building itself was originally designed as a manufacturing facility. It was built over the course of 4 construction efforts, and it was built, as I said, as a manufacturing facility. Some of the budget drivers relative to that is the mechanical system that was in the building, or that is in the building, was designed to support that manufacturing. And so as part of the conversion, the renovation into a police department, we will need to make that up to code compliance for the police, for more human occupancy. The existing building layout also, while did provide some great perimeter offices, needed further improvements in order to support the department and its workflow. But again, the opportunities outweigh some of the budget drivers. So here I wanted to spend a minute and walk you through the organization of the site, and then we'll work our way into the building. The building and the site are tied directly together in that they work hand in glove, I guess is the way I would put it. So here you see access in the, what is, I'm gonna see if, southwest corner, we have a public parking and access to the building. Then you can see in the light blue, access through a security gate into secured parking for the department and its vehicles. In the buff color, we have the impound lot area, and to the northwest, we have an area that's for expanded public parking access. Mainly it'll be parking for other law enforcement that are coming to this facility for training. So Then how do we access the building itself? We have the public entry there at the southwest, then an entrance into our patrol area there at the, I'm going to use my cursor to help identify that right there. Access into the indoor parking is through a door here, and egress out of that indoor parking is here. We have a new evidence bay that'll allow for vehicles that are needing evidence processing will be pulled in here. That leads us then into the building and how the building is being organized. So access, as you'll recall, from the southwest for the public, access from the northwest for, we're calling it semi-secure, in that it'll be for members of the police department, but also members that have previously arranged to arrive for trainings will be able to come in that northwest entrance. And the balance of the building is a secure area for the department. The building, 40,000 square feet on one level. It's a fairly large footprint. And so as we started to look at the organization of the building, we wanted to ensure that wayfinding was thought through and clear when you know where you're going and have access to points of view such as daylight. At the end of a corridor, you're able to orient yourself, and with this building, we want to make sure that this building is a tool for efficiency for the department. So that wayfinding is important, and that organization. We'll walk now through the building itself with the indoor parking there on the north. As I mentioned earlier, you saw it in the previous slide. Directly south of that is our evidence bay that I mentioned. And then directly south of the evidence bay is evidence processing and storage. There'll be a series of compact storage shelves that'll allow for the growth of the evidence over time. Not noted here are the department's armory and some patrol storage as well. So then that is directly adjacent to patrol officers' workstations, and that has direct access to their parking of their cruisers. So as they come in to write reports, they can come in this entrance here, write the reports, check in on things, but have direct access back out. This layout of this building is all about efficiency in order to improve response times. Public entry there at the southwest. We have an existing conference room. The administrative team is here, along with the chief's office behind a security barrier, but they're in close proximity to the public entry. We talked about the need to ensure the health and well-being of the department. So here we have a fitness area as well as tactical training. So their work with holds and things of that nature, a space specific to that. Locker rooms. And then the balance of a series of offices for investigative, for the detective team and community resource officers. Additionally, and very importantly, we have a space for training. This space is designed to allow for not only the Department of the City of Hudson's team to be trained here, but also for Hudson to support the training of more regional trainings, which is a benefit to the department because they're not traveling to other locations across the state. So this is intended to be a draw and allow for Hudson to be that host. So here we are with all of it organized and fully laid out. We also, kind of getting back to the importance of health and well-being, the place to take a deep breath, the place to take a breath, to sit down and take a break is central. It's really seen as the heart of the facility. It's located in the middle, but has access to daylight views through those corridors I mentioned earlier, and the introduction of a skylight that will allow for daylighting and connection to the outside. I will turn that over to Ken to then talk about schedule and budget.
Great. Thanks, Ian. So during the design phase of a project, there's really 4 major milestones, and that's the concept phase, schematic design, design development, and then construction documents phase. And during that, they start general in the concept phase, both in design and also pricing. But as you get further down that, you get more and more detailed in all your design and details, and you also get more and more detailed in your pricing as well. So currently, we are at the design development phase, where we're starting to develop, as you saw in the past presentation, the space. Some of those details are starting to get worked out in the site. The next phase would be the construction document phase, where really they're going to be taking all of those pieces and really getting into the nuts and bolts and the details of that. We will have another budget check at the end of that design or construction document phase prior to going to bidding. So this slide is a copy of the overall budget. I'll use the cursor here. And really the meat of this slide and this column here is the construction costs and what we call the hard construction costs. So it'll include the physical nuts and bolts, the masonry work, but it also includes the contingencies that go into the construction as well. What you'll see down low in the lower part of it is also what we call soft costs. So that includes design fees, permits, utilities, testing, inspections, and also furniture, fixtures, and equipment, with the goal of then giving you what we call a total project cost. So not just construction, but what the total cost of the city would be. So the first column is the concept estimate column. We did that back in July. You'll see the construction costs were about that $9 million, $9.8 million, with the soft cost total of about another $1 million for a total project cost of about that 10.16. We did our most current design development estimate. You'll see that the construction cost did go up slightly to about that 9.79 and a total project cost about that 10.86. So as a team, and you'll see in the next slide, we developed a list of cost-saving ideas to help bring that project back on the budget. And that's what that light green column is. It's our design development estimate with what we call value engineering ideas. And we will revisit this slide after review the list of cost-saving ideas next. So the next slide is what we call the value engineering worksheet. Here we develop a list of cost-saving ideas. We developed about 13 of them as a team, both with the architect and with the police department. We walked through that list. We prioritized that list. You'll see on the far right, gave it a priority where one is it could be a potential bid day alternate. So we could also, if the bids come in well, we could also add that back into the project. A priority 2 was items that we felt like we could eliminate now without sacrificing too much of the building function or the police officer's ability to function in that. Priority 3s were things that we could cut if we need to, but preferred not to. And then also priority 4s were last resort cuts that had major impacts to the function of the building or the function of the officers. So the line items in green were the priorities 1 and 2 that the team felt like we could either move as to an alternate or eliminate from the project. Those totaled about $850,000 in savings. You'll see that in the red. So there's about $850,000 in that value engineering savings, which brings our bottom line total back into just under that 10.1 million. So with that, we'd look at a project total budget of about 10.1 million. Currently, we identified those 4 alternates that would have on bid day. Now, as we go through the construction development phase, there may be 1 or 2 that gets added or subtracted, but that's currently what we're targeting is those 4 alternates on bid day. The next slide, wanted to just highlight schedule for the project. As we mentioned, we'd be working on our final construction document estimate here in end of February, early March. with the goal to be issuing the project out to bid sometime in early March with the Public Works project at the same time to gather some economy of scales between both projects. We'd be coming back to you guys with a guaranteed maximum price approval in early May, and then construction would start sometime in July with the completion in early February. So next steps, we did this similar presentation to the Public Safety Committee back on January 9th. We are here before you tonight. And with your guys' approval, our next step would be to go to the February 4th Planning Commission. And then we'd be back in front of you guys in early March, that March 3rd, for your approvals to go out to bid and our last budget check before we do that. And then early May would be about the timeline we'd be looking to accept bids and that guaranteed maximum price. With that, we'll stand for questions.
Anybody?
I do have several questions. Thank you. First of all, I do want to say that I absolutely support the police building and that we should move forward with it. As has pointed out in our Finance Committee meeting, we have, the police department's waited a long time for a better facility. I've seen their current office space. I mean, they're practically hot seating their desks, you know, in terms of sharing a cubby with someone who's ever on the next shift sits down and takes over. I do pride ourselves on the training that our chief and the leadership provides, and that I do feel when our officers are out in the field, they're in a well-equipped vehicle, all their training. I think we can all be proud of that. So I do want to state that I am in favor of that. My question for you, I want to roll back the clock a little bit to find out if you can help us understand why it is costing so much more than we initially anticipated when we purchased it. I know that perhaps none of you were actually involved in that, you know, scratching out a figure for us to calculate. We did engage the services of another construction management company that is very respected and that we've worked with many times to give us an idea about that building. I just feel like it's sort of our responsibility to the public to ask that question. And, you know, we're spending tax dollars. I do understand, we've had that well explained to us by our city administrator, the difference in the cost, how much we are saving by retrofitting an existing building. And as I call it, I like to say it's the ultimate in recycling, to use a building that's standing empty and to repurpose it. So could you help us understand why, and did we miss something somewhere, or is it just a more complex building than we expected? Why is the retrofitting budget so much higher than we thought it would be? Anybody?
Yes, great question. And one of the things I guess we identified as we looked at it to where we're at now was, as Ian mentioned earlier, the mechanical systems. Being not really suited or up to code for a police department, that had a big impact to the budget when we first started in concept. And that was a big budget driver to where that $5 million to $10 million.
Significant cost because it is such a big building. And are we pretty much tearing out what was there? It was not healthy, not adequate. At one point, again, I have just heard little snippets of it, and I'm on the council. I thought perhaps maybe some of it was that their system was so sophisticated for manufacturing that it was inexpensive to operate that way because of I don't know if they had clean rooms or things like that. Is that true?
It's partly true. That system was nearing the end of its useful life. So there were aspects of it, major components of it, that would have needed replacement very close on in the future.
Okay.
That system didn't provide the amount of fresh air that would be required for a building of this use now. So it's a change of use. It was a manufacturing building. Now it's a space where human beings will be functioning, right? So there were fewer number of people there,
sure.
And their mechanical system was geared towards the processes that the building was, not the people in. So it doesn't meet current code. Really didn't provide enough fresh air.
Okay, and we will have members of the public in the building, as well as our city staff there. So, okay, thank you.
One other thing you said caught something else that, well, it's escaped me. You mentioned something that...
Another question about it? I mean, I know we were getting a rough estimate of what it was thought to develop it. Some of the spaces looked like they were amenable, their office spaces, things like that. And we are taking advantage of that. I appreciate your design effort there and, save some soft costs on equipment or desks, things like that. Again, that was my question. I just felt it was appropriate that we discuss it in front of the public.
Could I just add that we worked very hard and diligently to look under every rock for savings in terms of saving furniture and fixtures, working with Focus on Energy at the state to bring in incentive dollars for new lighting and HVAC, and really sort of including the impound lot, which wasn't in the initial program, but I'm told is very needed. The current impound lot creates a lot of inefficiencies for the department, and it's kind of a hazard for keeping vehicles. Big picture, yes, it was a little more than the initial estimate, but when you look at it compared to the other communities and the initial estimate for a new construction, it is a very, very good deal. Like
Thank you.
at I think $245 a square foot, significantly less than the other benchmarks.
That's what you're penciling out, thank you, as
Yes.
opposed to 600 per square foot.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And yes, I do appreciate you looking for those efficiencies because we have to do that, sharpen our pencil and make our tax dollars go as far as possible. And I fully support the impound lot and all of that there. We need our officers to be able to feel like they're working in an efficient and safe and protected area. And I have seen some of the reports of their surveys and inputs and, having a place to relax, exercise there together, again, not share cubbies that are about this wide when they're in the PD headquarters. I think it's important. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Anybody else?
I have a quick design question, and it looks like you do as well. Mine is really quick. Back to where the police vehicles are going to be stored. At the moment, we have fuel and hybrid vehicles, but probably in the life cycle of this building, there will be more electric vehicles coming. Is that something that has been considered in the design process?
So we've not allocated electric charging stations.
Oh, excuse me. Could you step up to use the mic, please?
There is currently not in the project currently, there are no electric charging stations. They could be added in the future.
And we're at a good spot where, like, the infrastructure is kind of set there, so it wouldn't be a big deal as that does evolve to make that addition down the road?
Yep.
Thank you.
I believe our engineer said plenty of juice in this facility to handle that from the manufacturing process.
Anybody else?
I have a quick question. Under soft costs, that first line, design fees and reimbursable, can you just expand on that? That's a large number. Can you kind of throw some words at that of what that whole thing contains?
For the record, at Public Safety, I asked them to lob 200,000 of that off.
Randy.
They didn't say anything.
They're still working on it.
We're still working on it.
Yeah.
Sure. So when we initially started the project, the scope was much smaller at a $5 million, and the scope doubled. So the fee was a percentage-based fee,
Okay.
and rose at the same rate. The fee is tagged to RS means, which kind of sets a reasonable percentage rate for this type of work to make sure you're getting quality work and not the lowest possible fee for this type of facility.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Where are you dropping the mechanical HVAC system upgrades and what line item on this? Under construction costs?
Yeah, great question. So that is distributed between those construction costs, between like the office and the garage and things like that. The appropriate mechanical systems are in those estimates.
So you really don't have a total per se broke down?
Not in this summary, but we have a detailed estimate that's 17 pages long that would have that broken down, that we
Okay.
could get that for you if you'd like.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
For the opportunity to work for the city of Hudson. Yeah.
Thank you for your
Excellent.
work.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from the January 6, 2025 regular council meeting. Approve claims in the amount of $8,920,140.12. Approve the Rotary Dunk. Approve Hudson Hot Air Fair. Approve the purchase of new squad and ordering another. Approve the letter of engagement with SEH to develop the stormwater pollution prevention plan for 2101 O'Neill Road. Approve the letter of engagement with SEH in the amount of $16,000 to assist with the 2025 RAISE planning grant for Carmichael Road.
Please pull that one.
Approve a certified survey map, extraterritorial zone, Town of Hudson at 669 County Road N, Richard Pearson. Approve the change of use request at 1103 Summer Street, Cheryl and Trent, LLC.
Please pull that from the agenda, from consent.
Approve setting a public hearing date for a rezoning petition from AR Agriculture Residential to R2 two-family residential at 515 Stage Line Road, Cantor Crossing, Twin Cities Land Development, LLC. Approve First Amendment to the Water Service Agreement. Approve paying for council members and/or employees to attend Hudson Area Chamber member celebration in order to represent the city.
Please pull that one.
Move to
Okay.
approve with the exception of G, I, and L.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to approve consent agenda with the exceptions of items G, I, and L. Roll call?
Morissette?
Yes.
Wakefield? Yes. Knutson?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Bruck?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion is approved, consent agenda is approved. Item G.
The Finance Committee has passed a motion to pull the funds out of the general fund use instead of the Higgins Street for this purpose, so I will move that we approve that.
Second.
No.
Okay, one thing of note, since it is an adjustment to the budget, it would need a 2/3 vote to go forward.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Approve the change of use request at 1103 Summer Street.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did request for this to have some council discussion. This is an item that has been discussed by the Plan Commission and was forwarded by them, but I do think, you know, I have some comments regarding some issues about this property. And this is in my district, so I represent District 3, and this property and this neighborhood, this concern has been the single biggest issue that's been brought to me personally, phone calls, emails, et cetera, in-person conversations with residents. So it has been clearly an area of concern. Just some background for you. There's several duplexes together that face Summer Street. And across from Summer Street is O'Connell's Funeral Home. And a block and a half further east is elementary school. So you've heard me talk a little bit about this 11th Street corridor before because it is a very busy street. It's a block and a half from elementary school. I understand that there's more, quote, walkers, this is information from the school district, walkers to that elementary school than any school in town, actually, the people that are actually eligible and do walk. So this neighborhood on 11th Street has no sidewalk. There's a lot of traffic. It has become definitely a collector street over time in Hudson. A number of the residents have lived there many years, if not decades. Happily, next summer, there is going to be a reconstruction project. It has gone through all the design steps, community input, et cetera. There is going to be some state funding that is involved in that street project, and that requires us to use a certain design firm, et cetera. So our staff has worked on that process. I want to point out, though, to you as elected officials, that while right now they have no sidewalk, after the reconstruction next summer, there will be a multi-use trail on the west side of the street. So that will provide some safety moving north and south. There will still need to be some crosswalks for children to get to the school, of course, but there will be no on-street parking on 11th Street as of next summer. Right now, people do park on the west side, and there is I'm embarrassed to say, a painted line where they can walk. That's Hudson has grown up, Asset has grown up, and many communities actually have been in parts of the metropolitan area where they don't have sidewalks either in all their neighborhoods. There was a time when people just didn't do as much on foot or bikes, or there wasn't as much traffic. So traffic is definitely an issue there. Parking is an issue. What has come forward is that the duplex there was okayed as a special use for a dental office 50 years ago. And the dentist who lived in that townhouse, or the one side of the duplex, asked their neighbors, would you agree with that? And it was approved by Plan Commission and the council in 1974. By 1977, the summer of 1977, those same neighbors were writing letters to the city to say, this isn't working out. There's way too much traffic. For one, as I mentioned, it's on Summer Street, but the parking is actually on the very small half-block street, which is, the name of it is now escaping me. It's not Morrison, it's... At any rate, that's where the access to this office building has been, and has been operated as a dental office for a certain time period. It is considered a non-conforming use because that is actually zoned R2. So that, as you know, is residential two-family in the building. And so that is the current zoning, and it has been considered non-conforming. Well, there has been changes of different dental practices there over the 50 years, as you can imagine. And recently, someone purchased the dental practice, but is no longer, the neighbors are maintaining that they are no longer practicing in that building. That, a new facility has been built out at Exit 4, so they're not actually in the city of Hudson now. And I wish them the best. Hopefully their practice is thriving. They decided that for whatever reason, chose to move. Well, according to state law and our own code, a non-conforming use, if it is left idle, if you will, not used for 12 months, they lose the right to have that non-conforming use. That is in our city code under 253-6.1 sub B sub 2. Hope I read that right. Where if the non-conforming use is discontinued for 12 consecutive months, it's no longer permitted for that future use of that property. I am here today to represent the neighbors and the adjacent property owners who say that it has not been used. They feel it has not been used for about 18 months as a dental practice. A dental practice is defined as an office space where you see dental patients. Our LLC that is the applicant here has maintained to the Plan Commission, and there have been meetings with attorneys, including our city attorney who's not here today, but I have spoken with him about it, that they felt that that applicant still intended to use it and that they would be allowed to continue, that they're saying that they're having office meetings there, et cetera. And some residents have told me that they've set up like a trail cam like you'd use on a deer path to watch for, and they have seen no activity. I was out for a walk last winter, talked to the mailman, no, we don't deliver there, it wasn't shoveled. To all people who are watching it closely, it seems it has not been used. But that was presented to the city that we are still using it. And so it was presented to the Plan Commission that they still have the right to that non-conforming use. I recognize I'm not an attorney, and this is the sort of thing, if there were two entities with enough money, they could battle it out in court. I don't know that the neighbors are going to approach that, but I am trying to just represent them tonight by letting you know that they feel that that usage as a dental practice was given up. To practice dentistry, you see patients coming and going, you have oxygen on the facility, you have x-ray equipment, all of those things that would be part of the practice of dentistry. And again, I don't know how a judge would decide that, but our staff and our legal team have decided to accept the property owner's version that they are still using it. That non-conforming statute in our zoning code that I just read off actually is because the state requires that. That is a state law, that if you're not using it. And so our code has simply adopted what the state is saying. So that is one of my concerns. Certainly parking is a big issue for the adjacent, residents and so on. And I feel that the idea that, I just think that it should be more firmly specified for them if it is going to be, the end user of this property is probably going to be a great neighbor, all of that sort of thing. But we still have an opportunity. Sometimes you look around Hudson and you think, well, why did that happen? And this goes back to the old days. Well, now we have an opportunity actually to listen to the residents that are telling us, we just want this to be a residential. That is what they prefer, is that they have lost their non-conforming use. There has been quite a bit of input. The applicant had been lined up to apply for an actual zoning change, and that was on the Plan Commission's agenda earlier, maybe in August. We were due to have a public hearing here in September, and then the applicant withdrew that zoning change and decided to approach it differently. So again, obviously I represent that property owner too, so I'm trying to be fair about it, but I just feel there was a group of people that were prepared to come to that public hearing. They had submitted letters of their concerns to city staff, and I'm bringing that forward tonight because I feel that it's something that we should discuss and not just rubber stamp what the Plan Commission has done. So thank you for the time to discuss it.
Thank you.
As a member of the Plan Commission, I'd like to address the issue with a couple things. For one, the Plan Commission did vote 7-0 unanimously to grant the change. If you read number item 3, there is no business parking on the street at all. In reference to the case law that city attorney and the client, or not the client, but the applicant's attorney cited, and I don't have those numbers or those cases in front of me, but if you read their opinion, it clearly states that we would probably lose a case if we went after the fact that it's alleged that it's no longer a dental office when in fact they have been paying rent and it is used as dental business. The lawyer said that. The city attorney said that we would probably lose that in a courtroom. So the Plan Commission did take that into consideration. We also narrowed the scope of what could go in there as far as professional office, dental, medical, legal, accounting, and engineering. And it's our prerogative as a Plan Commission and a city, which is applicable, what we did, what we applied, is germane to the state statute. As far as the applicant is concerned, I would think that Mr. Zeller has, in fact, been a great partner in developing projects throughout the city, including our riverfront, him and another group. He's responsible, and he's legitimately got a good business plan in place. And I would rather vote on this particular thing in favor of instead of opening it up to a rental. And quite frankly, if somebody else if the neighbors wanted to buy it and they're so concerned about it, then they would have had to purchase it. And they could have done what they wanted with it. But that's not what's happened. And the Plan Commission has done its due diligence, and we've heard this for a long time now on this particular issue. We've heard the neighbors, we understand it. But this, I think, is a good product of a lot of discussion. So I would move to approve this action that was unanimously planned or unanimously approved through Plan Commission.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Further discussion?
I'd like to offer an amendment. There's recommended action, so I'm assuming that is the move to approve.
Oh, yeah, all those actions
All those
are.
items, thank you. The paragraph above that recommended action is basically some verbiage quoting the zoning code requirement. I would move that item 4 would be any future nonconforming use at this property must comply with the off-street parking requirements in section 255-48 of Hudson Municipal Code. And that's basically outlined there. So we have 2,400 square feet that's being identified based on what the property owner is telling us, and they need office space, for business office spaces, to have 1 space per 200. So to me, that we should really have 12, not 9 on parking stalls. If we're really going to commit, and we've just been talking about the burden of enforcement when we ask something, you know, we make a requirement, and then who follows up on that? And I would rather put the burden, rather than saying, you know, no parking, no business parking, well, then who's going to enforce no business parking? I think we need to say from the beginning, you can have this space, but lay out with a plan for me where you have those parking spaces, because that does fit with the code, and there are other businesses in Hudson that have had to comply with that, I believe. The off-street parking has been defined for our businesses, and I would like to see item 4 specifically reference that information that the staff has provided, and again, it is found in 255-48. So I think that would provide more specific parameter for the applicant to know going forward. What would they do? How could they move forward with that? So my amendment is for item 4 to say any future nonconforming use at this property must comply with off-street parking requirements in section 255-48 of the municipal code.
If I may ask a question, wouldn't that be addressed, Mike, in item 2 under review? And he's already stated that there will be no on-street parking.
Number 3, you mean?
And it's up here too.
Yeah.
And 2.
Yep. But no,
Yeah,
the first part of her comment,
And a lot of it is, you know, you talk about exclusive of, what does it say?
Excluding mechanical space and things
Right,
like that. Right.
heating and
It would- I'm not-
mechanical
I
and the
shouldn't
other
stand here and
stuff.
say it's 12, right? You would
Right.
determine. You
Right.
would determine, rather than just saying no business parking,
Right.
because that's incumbent on, you know, who's in the office saying, oh, you can't park out there. You know, somebody comes in, you see some of the pickups, larger vehicles that are in town. I don't want to get into that tight parking space. I'm going to park on the street. So I just think that's a little unusual phrasing to state it that way. I just think we should ask if we are going to grant this very unusual special permission to continue operating a different, not a dental office, of course. It is not going to be a dental office. It's going to be something different, unnamed, which they are coming before Plan Commission and staff to identify that. I just think this is a way, again, I'm trying to represent the neighbors who have concerns about the parking. How can we make it as specific as possible so that that property owner and anyone who leases that as an office space knows exactly what they have to work with?
So do you want it to be 12 on site instead of 9?
Well, I'm going to withdraw my stating a number, because as Mike Johnson was, it is accepting of, you know, HVAC space and things like that. That would be up to the city staff to look at the floor
Right,
plan.
we'll have to review it.
It does say the 200 square, right? It does. That is correct. Our ordinance, it says 1 space for each 200 square feet of usable floor area.
Usable floor area, yep.
Yep, that's already in there?
Yes, and so I'm going to withdraw my comment of saying that it needs to be 12. I just want it to be clearly stated that I think it's only fair that they abide by our off-street parking. It's in our municipal code. Yes, it is a judgment call, and yes, you're correct. I did listen in and understand lawyers who have law degrees and read case law have determined that they're going to be able to say that they've been complying with non-conforming use. Again, I'm just trying to represent that neighborhood to express their concerns, and their concerns have definitely been about parking. So that is my amendment, if you would accept it, Mr. Morissette.
Could you clearly say what your amendment was?
My amendment would be item 4, it could be, or it could be incorporated in item 3 under recommended action. Any future non-conforming use at this property must comply with the off-street parking requirements in section 255-48 of the municipal code. So once again, I understand that the applicant, the property owner, is waiting for our approval, if they get approval, to bring in a tenant. So all of that is yet to be planned and designed, and our staff would work with the floor plan then to indicate how many parking spots they can have.
I'll
I think-
I'll accept that amendment.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion that has been amended, friendly amendment. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Joy, the residents in that neighborhood, they just want residential use for that building?
Going back 47 years, yes, that is true. I think there's, people come to an office, they're not familiar with the neighborhood. They pull out and they get lost a little bit. There's a series of small streets there. They pull in and out of people's driveways. Again, there's going to be even less parking available for residents as of next summer's reconstruction. So they have very legitimate concern there, and definitely traffic flow. I know that the applicant, the property owner, is hoping to bring in an office that is quiet, not disruptive, minimal traffic. But again, I do think this is it's non-conforming use. There's no way around that it is not conforming, special use, whatever the term is, whether that's still standing or not. I think it's only fair that we apply our off-street parking that's been in our municipal code for many years to this property.
As it pertains to number of parking stalls provided? Or,
Yes, because, for example.
I just want to clarify.
Sure.
From my standpoint, and forgive me, I don't have the code in front of me for that section. But, does that section talk about, parking stalls have to be 10 feet away from the building? They have to be so far away from, the property line, things like that, which is all non-conforming as it currently exists. So are we just going down?
That's a good question, and thank you. I was only thinking of the number of parking spots, but yes, you've helped me work through some other issues like this in our district. In the older part of Hudson, there are businesses that are parking on the city right-of-way, for example, and I have a feeling this would qualify for that also.
So
it
it's
does
Beale
make it difficult.
Street is the cross street.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the map.
It's a very small little section,
Yep.
small street.
Yep. So, if the motion is specific to number of parking stalls provided.
I see what you're clarifying because, and I appreciate it, you have obviously a much greater understanding of the code for me, and I was zeroing in on the number of stalls because that's important. The issue of the usage of the city right-of-way, you and I have been down that block before.
Oh, yeah. All over
Another
the
project,
place.
a long-standing project in Hudson. Would you suggest I word it to only mention the number of stalls?
Number of stalls provided, yeah.
Okay, so
If you
Mr.
would.
Morissette, if I could amend my amendment?
Well, let's say it again.
Okay, here we go. Any future non-conforming use of this property must comply with the required number of parking stalls for off-street parking, according to the requirements in section 255-48 of the municipal code. Does that sound doable, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, it's specific to the number of required stalls for usable space.
Right. In other words, we're not opening the can of worms that actually it's on city right-of-way and.
But we've addressed the issue, right, with this previous amendment?
I think what Mike is trying to say is if we pass the amendment as I worded it, there's multiple, I circled one section of our zoning off-street parking, and he's obviously the master of our municipal code.
Don't go that far.
That, down to you. He's asking me I'm not saying I am willing to make it more specific to how many parking stalls, that we're sure that they have it planned carefully, based on the square footage of their usage, as this would apply to other properties with off-street parking in Hudson. But I am not specifying that we need to address the use of, right now, there's his comment was about how many feet from the building the parking lot has to be, how many feet up from the right-of-way. The specific property that I'm discussing with Mike on the side here is Gerber Collision. That was initially authorized as a body repair shop, auto body shop, and privately owned family company here in town got permission to be there, and they had very strict limitations on how many cars could be parked there and so on. Well, for those of you who have lived here forever, that was a car lot before, and there was no curb there. So the parking that as the new Gerber Collision came in, we had all those hailstorms, lots of cars in the lot. It was a very busy parking lot, and they were definitely parking a lot of cars on the city road, which I feel at some points affected visibility to turn out onto Cooley, things like that. Snow removal might have been impacted. And so because that company was approaching the city for a redevelopment plan, that was an opportunity to ask them to, hey, we need our right-of-way back. You'll notice there's a curb there and there's grass that'll be coming next year. So that has been improved. It was a long-standing property. This is a long-standing property too. I recognize that. So if I'm reading you right, you're feeling like that's, is that the request you're asking for me, is just to limit it to how many cases?
Yes, unusable square feet, yes.
I think everything has been accounted for with the plan that was presented. So I guess at this point, I'm going to say no to this amendment, and let's, if we could vote on what is on the table.
Okay, well, the staff is going to need to address that when they come for,
Correct, and I think that's what we're trying to do. Number 2 is already addressing that. Anything that comes future business-wise has to go to staff for review.
okay? Okay, so the amendment that I originally proposed has been accepted,
Yep, I'm fine with that one, but not your new one.
not the change to it. So you feel that they should comply with everything that's in our code for off-street parking?
Well, then we might be walking down the path of the setbacks, the everything else. That's a concern that I would have. You get a new user in there. Let's say they have enough stalls. Let's say that, they're only using 9. They only need 9 based on square footage. Does that bring into play then, well, now the parking stalls have to be out of the right of way entirely. Now they have to be 10 feet away from the building. Now they got to be 5 feet from the side yard property set, line.
Yeah.
So I don't think that works to what
No,
I think
and I don't
Joy.
want to see that happen. So if that's the case, is that
Right.
what you're?
My amendment was to try and allow a little more flexibility because, it is a long-standing property.
So Rand, if I might, I think what
Clear as mud?
I think what you're saying is approve as presented, just 1, 2, and 3 is what you're asking for.
Well, yeah, but if you're thinking that if she's being a little more flexible, I would take the friendly amendment if that is easier.
And I think her amendment to her original amendment,
We start over.
just talking
It's on
about,
first.
just being specific about, okay, just the number, and that's it. Otherwise, if we open the entire code section up, there's a whole lot of other, I'm assuming, again, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm assuming there's a lot more that goes into that review as opposed to just, you need X number of stalls per 200 square feet of usable space.
And that's already in here.
Correct.
The 200 the number of stalls to accommodate 200 square feet, 1 stall per 200 square feet. That's already in here.
But it's not on what we're voting
not
on.
a
It is on the
condition.
issue sheet, you're right, Lynn. So I'm just asking that verbiage in that paragraph to be moved down to be item 4.
That's fine.
So
Yeah.
item 4 would be 1 space for 200 square feet of usable floor area exclusive of heating and mechanical equipment.
Per the code. Yep.
Well, I think we have to be careful with per the code, because then I think that goes back to what you just said.
Yeah, being specific on the
I'll
number.
accept input on the wording.
As in we're grandfathering kind of the layout.
This is what it is. This
now.
is what it is. Yes.
Okay. You know me, I'm a rules guy, and I understand that the street in between that and the funeral home and the church behind it, you know, all that is parking spots, and sometimes it's completely empty. And other times you go to a funeral and, I'm parking and doing kind of what the neighbors say. I don't know all those streets back there. I might have thought, oop, there's no parking, so I'm backing out.
Yeah.
I've been to funerals there where you're 3 or 4 blocks away and hoping you're not parking in someone's mailbox and things like that. So I'm sensitive to neighbors who say, hey, this is my house and here's how I feel about it. But we can't, there's an elephant on this map, and that's these huge other parking lots right across the street. So while we try to define exactly only 8 spots or only, you know, no on-street parking at all, their neighbors, because of the way their businesses are, the church and the funeral home, there's lots of on-street parking, and there's no way to stand out there and stop that. So although I want to get this thing tied up as tight as it can in a bow, I think the way it's written is sort of, I mean, again, I'll accept Randy's First Amendment, Second Amendment, whatever it was.
Well, so in other words.
But I also don't think, I think we're beating this a little much for what that neighborhood is offering. That's as I see it.
So do you feel like number 3, no business parking, is something that's hard to enforce? You know, if we put.
Completely hard to enforce.
Very hard to enforce. So
I-
that's
I
why
do-
I'm suggesting
I do
more.
believe that
Yeah.
we as a city have tried to keep those rules as tight as possible, but still letting a businessman breathe. And I think we're as tight as we can right now. Otherwise, yeah, it'll probably become a rental duplex or fourplex or something like that. And now you have more parking issues and more
Good.
things. So anyway, I
So,
guess if we could restate the,
I'm moving to approve this recommended action with every one of the actionable items, 1, 2, and 3, and adding 4, if I'm correct.
Yes.
I've lost track of what 4 was, I gotta be honest.
I think you just stated,
That's
Did.
just plain,
Right.
not the other code part, just the
Right.
200 square feet part.
Right.
of usable
The
spaces.
verbiage that's included in the paragraph above.
Right.
Which is basically stating the code, but you're right, we're not implying that they have to comply with every aspect of off-street parking. It is a location that has been grandfathered. We didn't have these sort of zoning requirements when it was initially operated as a dental office.
Are we good?
Yes.
Becky?
Yep. Here's mine.
All right, everybody good? We got a motion as amended twice, friendly amendments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Item L.
I pulled this for full discussion.
Yep,
I think you're all here for finance.
yep.
I'll make the motion to approve paying for council members and/or employees to attend the Hudson Area Chamber Member Celebration in order to represent the city.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
yeah, when you explain what was going, in the past, we kind of had this unwritten, we'll just play it by ear type thing, so I like tightening up the rules. It's not a mandatory thing to go to. You can go by yourself, you can bring your spouse, you can bring I mean, the more the merrier at that place, for sure. And just as I know it's a very small thing, but us paying out of our pocket, that's kind of the least we can do. I don't think the citizens should have to pay for us having a meal somewhere. It just seems like it's such a small thing. And if you don't feel it's worth it, then you don't go. That's kind of my thought. So I've attended it many years, and it's great, and it's a great bang for your buck.
So I have a few questions for you. So there is a $7,000 budget to cover these types of things. And I'm just wondering, from a historical perspective, what has been covered in the past similar to this, just so that we're consistent across the board?
Okay, similar to the meal, the last 2 years, the meal's been covered,
Okay, have we covered any other,
not prior to that.
functions at all that
No.
might be?
As far as the chamber events, no. I mean, that kind of brings it into more of a policy decision, and that I think needs to be discussed as the policies as a whole. This is simply, do you agree whether this particular meal, which is coming up on Thursday, should be paid for? And that's it. I mean, beyond that, we do need to have further policy discussions as to what we should or shouldn't allow as a council between all the different events that are out there, what should or shouldn't be paid for.
And I
But-
think there are many events that we go to that it's important that council, you represented there that are not paid for. So then do we have to make a list of what are approved and what are you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's
don't
several
know
ways
that-
you can cut it, but that gets into a policy side. You
That's
can
what I mean,
Right.
so I
authorize
just-
only so much per whatever, but that, again, becomes a policy side. This kind of is just narrowed on this one event for this time, because you had done it the last 2 years, it was paid for. Before that, it wasn't. What do we do going forward? That's just for this event. We'll decide what we're doing going forward as far as the overall policies of the board.
Well, this is to keep in consideration for the future policy discussion. I do think it's important to note that for future council members, maybe feel like that could be prohibitive. And so that's where, when you're representing your city, where it could make sense. That probably doesn't apply to us, anyone here tonight, but I think that is an important consideration for the future.
Yeah, definitely have that as part of the discussions for council policies, for sure.
All right, anybody else?
Well, is it paying for all for none or whoever just goes?
Well,
Right.
that's
I'm
for
not
you.
scheduled to go, so.
No, that's for you. This is simply saying if whoever's going, council member or employee, they can be reimbursed for it if you wish to vote for that today.
Really?
Well, that's what,
Council, so, I mean, any city employee?
well,
You opening it up to all city employees? Is that what
it's
this
usually
motion is?
department, no, it's usually department heads that go to this, and
I understand
I'm the
that,
only
but-
department
but-
head that's going, I believe, right now.
Yeah, but if it's worded to city employees, we need to,
You can approve however.
When I see a disconnect between, I mean, that's a great function, but it's a social function, it's a celebration of what that group has accomplished over the year. I don't see a direct connection. If there were certain training that we had to do legally because the state mandates it, or I don't know if we could use that fund to bring someone in to train us how to do whatever.
Yes,
A lot of
you
things.
could, yes.
But this is, to me, there's this step removed that if you miss it one year, you missed a good meal and a couple laughs, but it's not, again, I don't think we're servants of the city. I don't think we should say, oh, you know what else I'd like to have the city pay for is, there's some other function. The firefighters have the pancake breakfast. I paid for that one out of my own pocket, which is fine. But I mean, at some point, to me, this isn't the city council hosting a dinner. This is a quasi, I don't know if that's the right word, but I think it's removed enough that if you think it's worth it, go and pay for it. That's my thought. And again, like Lynn said, you kind of get in a mess of who else gets invited and what,
Well, registration is closed for this, so they wouldn't be able to accommodate more people anyway. So it would only be limited to people who have already registered.
Yeah. I think it's just Rich and I. Are you on?
I'm registered.
Yeah.
I'm registered.
I'm going to Wild.
Sarah, are you registered?
We'll have some representation there.
all right, so, are we good? Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion is not approved. Here's what I would like to do. I'd like to move the agenda up and get the department head reports out of the way. We've gone pretty late already tonight. We've got a long way to go yet, so if that's okay with you guys.
Unless you would like us moved to have it filed for the record.
They're here right now. They've waited all this long.
Okay.
I'm sure they're just chomping at the bit to get up here.
And we have divided them in half to do half and half.
I'm gonna, Jeff, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put you toward the end of this, because you've gotta be here, I think, for a couple other items, don't you, on the agenda? Is that, you're on the truancy thing? Yeah, okay, so,
I'm here until you guys leave anyway.
oh, that's a good point, you
It's our
have to protect us,
security,
don't you?
right.
Yeah.
Security.
All right, fire department report?
I'll keep this short. This was the year end, this was our November report. We're still compiling everything for our annual report. That'll probably be coming forward either at the February meeting or March, once we get that done. But we set another record incident-wise, 657. That eclipsed our 618 from the year before. There's no signs of anything slowing down as the community continues to grow. It's all pretty straightforward in the report. Our training hours were down for the month because of the holidays. We didn't train the last 2 weeks because of the holidays. And inspections were down because we're getting caught up. So that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Next up, clerk report.
With the new year, we got dog tags are being processed right now, senior parking passes are being renewed, and we are in the cycle now with nursing home voting coming up, so we're getting prepped for that for the spring primary.
Okay, anybody? All right, finance department, you doing that?
Yeah, I can just run down on it real quick. So they are wrapping up the books for 2025 and getting ready for the audit. So they're starting to get all that information together, processing the checks for the other taxing jurisdictions and disbursements that you have already seen, and of course doing all the W-2s for the IRS and individuals that are out there. They're getting close to budgets looking okay. It's a little out of skew, but we won't know the final numbers until we see them in the next couple of months. But it looks like overall budgets, we've collected about 120,000 more than what we predicted in 2024, and then where budgets are just about on, a little bit over on budget as it's presented right now. And we'll see where those numbers come in soon.
Okay, thank you. Public Works?
I guess the one major thing that I want to point out in the Public Works update is that the state opened up bids for the 11th Street project that's set to go this summer. The engineer's estimate for construction alone was 1.9 million. The bids came back in at 1.5, so $400,000 underneath the engineer's estimate, which is very good for us. We were originally estimating about $600,000 coming out of the city to help fund that project because it is a grant-funded project. Based on their estimates, we're near like 450. So able to save a lot of money with that project. So, and that bodes well for our upcoming project that we're looking to bid out here in the next month or two is the O'Neill Street project. So if the numbers hold true, hopefully we'll get some good results there. So that's all I really wanted to highlight for you. So thank you.
That's great news.
Thank you. All right, city administrator report.
You know, I'll go quick. We're gearing up for Ring Central. That should be rolled out, I believe, in February, March. That's the new phone system. The mayor and I, we already mentioned, I guess, the Carmichael Road and Hagan Street Bridge projects were mentioned to the governor's office. It looks also that there is, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities has reached out to all municipalities on issues they have with highway and infrastructure, so they're making it kind of a priority coming up. So they've asked for a survey and some other information. I'll be getting together with staff here to fill that out. Hopefully that helps float what our concerns are between Hagan Street and Carmichael a little bit higher on the governor's budget list. We'll see where that goes. And of course, the mayor and I are meeting with the DNR, and I believe Mike's there as well, meeting with the DNR for the St. Croix River abandoned boats. I believe it's the deputy secretary or deputy secretary. We're meeting with one of the individuals higher up in the DNR to talk about the boat project. They are beginning to express their concerns over the issue. So we're heading in the right direction with that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Chief?
Biggest update is the two that were sworn in tonight started with us on January 6th. That brought us to full staff for the first time in 7 years that we actually had our staff all bodied up. So pretty important update there. Like Drew, we are finalizing our annual report, but the cursory number is 19,993 calls for service for the year. So not slowing down, just like the fire department. Any questions on anything else that I had written in there?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Doug, what item on the agenda are you here for?
I'm not on it.
Oh, okay.
Participate.
Citizen interest.
Excellent. All right. Discussion possible action on the amendment of ordinance 1-25, truancy ordinance amendment of Hudson Municipal Code 165.
Could have told me. This is basically an amendment to an ordinance that already exists for juveniles, but it doesn't have any teeth in it for enforcing maybe adult caregivers that contribute to their delinquency. The big problem, one of the big problems we have when we're dealing with repetitive issues with the same juveniles is it's education and give back to the parents and hope for redirection and things like that. But oftentimes, I shouldn't even say oftentimes, there are times that make it challenging when the caregivers that are adults don't care necessarily and don't help with the guidance process. And there's no real way in the previous ordinance to allow us to take enforcement action on that behavior. So this ordinance basically allows us to take enforcement action on the adult caregiver for those repetitive issues.
Move to approve.
Second.
So amendment to an ordinance, is this?
Oh, ordinance.
Gotta
I thought we
suspend the
did that
rules.
already.
Got to suspend.
We'll just
Oh.
suspend the rules.
All right, so Mike, you got that.
So we got a motion, was there a second?
Ordinance.
To suspend the rules?
Second.
Motion and second to suspend the rules, roll call?
Morissette?
Yes.
Wakefield?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
All right, motion's approved, rules are suspended.
Now I can move to approve.
I'll second.
The motion and second to approve, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Introduction of Resolution 01-25, and to set a public hearing date to partially discontinue a portion of undeveloped public right-of-way for 3rd Street and undeveloped alleyway generally located between north of Pine Street.
I think the council is fairly familiar with this process. What we do is we receive these applications, and there's a defined statutory process that we do have to follow. This one is presentation of the resolution and setting a public hearing date. So, usually if something comes up, we don't hear about it until it's gotten to about this point. But there is an opportunity for the public, the neighboring properties, to come in and communicate their concerns with both the Plan Commission and Council. So the city doesn't have a use for it, whether it be Public Works or the utilities. But, like I said, the public will need to weigh in on the matter as well. And it's tentatively scheduled or setting a public hearing date for Monday, March 3rd. So, recommend approval.
Motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and second to approve, discussion?
Just for the record, I would like it out there that there are residents in that area who do have concerns, so I do think we will have people here for that public hearing.
Okay, Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Introduction of Resolution 02-25 to set a public hearing date to partially discontinue a portion of undeveloped public alleyway running from Cole Street to Pitt Street, generally located between 10th Street and 11th Street.
Same spiel.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action to approve preliminary resolution 03-25 declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703 Wisconsin statutes for the 11th Street Improvements Project. Aaron?
Yes. So this item is just to start the process and approve the preliminary resolution for special assessments for 11th Street. So we are planning to assess curb and gutter and driveways.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action to approve preliminary resolution 04-25, declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703 Wisconsin statutes for the O'Neill Road reconstruction.
So this is to approve a preliminary resolution to kind of kick off the special assessments for O'Neill Road from Hanley Road to Tower Road. And this would include driveways and curb and gutter as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on amending Chapter 212, Streets and Sidewalks of the Municipal Code regarding underground sprinkler and irrigation systems.
So this is an item, our current city ordinance doesn't specifically address kind of when we get conflicts with underground sprinkler systems in the public right-of-way. So this is a very common occurrence. People, put irrigation in their boulevards, and this is public right-of-way. So usually during any construction project where we are replacing curb and gutter or changing the roadway width, we'll run into underground sprinkler systems. And I think it's just been dealt with a little bit inconsistently. Do we have to cover that because it's in the public right-of-way, or should that be on the homeowner's cost as they choose to put that in? So I looked at updating our ordinance to kind of clarify that that is all on the homeowner's responsibility. So when we go through a project, we'll kind of state if you have irrigation, it'll be, your responsibility to either get it out of the way before construction, or if we encounter it and damage it, it will be their responsibility to pay to repair it, to keep it in the right of way. So this, I don't want to maybe use the word amendment, but I am going to amend my action actually to just start the process to amend this chapter, as it sounds like I need to do it a little differently on the agenda. So I'll try to bring that next time. And I also wanted legal to just look at the wording of what I wrote. So
are you looking for a motion to authorize you to go ahead with this?
yeah, basically.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, so just, once again, I just want to acknowledge and provide sincere condolences on behalf of me and the council for the passing of Councilmember Brooks' father, Dan Brook. And again, our thoughts are with you and your family. I know it's a very difficult time.
Thank you. He certainly loved this community, that is for sure. So, thank you.
Anybody else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned.